Hello and welcome to another episode of the Life is a Video Game podcast. I'm not going to faff about doing all the little editing stuff at the beginning because it just wastes my time. This is like a, free-form podcast. I'm not going to start faffing about making little editing bits because that takes an enormous amount of my time and that is precious. Alright? Good. I'm filming this in 4K as well, so if you can see a load of blemishes and spots, don't say anything. Right, so what do I want to talk to you on this podcast about today? Okay, got some interesting things lined up for you. By the end of this podcast, we should have concluded on a couple of things. Firstly, does the CIA know that this is a simulation? You may, if you're into all that sort of stuff, know that the CIA is into some pretty dodgy, weird, fucked up shit, right? And they do a lot of scientific research into all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And it may surprise you to know that the CIA has investigated the fact that this reality that we call life is actually a virtual reality simulation, like a video game. That's why I called my podcast the Life is a Video Game podcast, right? Secondly, I want to talk to you about the new Matrix Awakens video game. If you've seen this, the trailer dropped on YouTube like, I don't know, a week ago, maybe less than that, a couple of days maybe, and I watched it. I've got a tab open with it here. I'll just mute it. Basically, what they've done is they've partnered with the Unreal Engine team people. Unreal Engine 5 are the people that, I think they make the software that video game developers use to make their video games. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like we use a Mac or Windows, they have Unreal, and I think the other one is called Unity, or I don't know, I'm getting that wrong probably, doesn't matter, I'm not a scientist or a video game nerd. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about that and all my thoughts about the new Matrix shit. It's not shit, it's good, it looks fucking brilliant, the new film, and they're tying it in with a video game, which is like, extra absolutely fabulously stonking, brilliant. Can't wait to play that. Then I'm going to go through your comments, or I might do that first. Actually, no, I won't. I'll do that afterwards. So thanks for writing in your comments, and stay to the end to see if I answer yours. Not only am I going to be answering the comments that came through on the last podcast, I'm going to be answering comments that were on recent videos, because there's some crackers in there that I want to address. Is that all right with you? Good! I'm also going to look through my page of video ideas so that I can talk about them, because it's more material, Anyway, first and foremost, I want to start with the fact that the CIA knows that this is a simulation. Right, I bleat on about the simulation flipping endlessly. I'm like a broken record of a broken record. Even I get fucking sick of it sometimes. That's why I need to find things that confirm that this is a simulation. Like science and stuff. And when we do come across it, it's like, wow, where's this been like all my life? And people send me stuff and comment on my videos and say, look at this, Jack, have you ever read this? And I go, okay, I check it out, and I go, bloody hell, I never knew that. And it blows my mind. And I'm like, oh my God, this really is a simulation. Because, even I make the videos about it, but even I sometimes doubt it and go, nah, is it though? Is it really? It feels bloody real, when you do this. Feels real. But what is real? How do you define real? Real could simply be electrical signals interpreted by your brain. Now, the object of this podcast is not to just wake up people that are still asleep inside the Matrix. It's to entertain you, make you laugh, right? Because all of this sciencey stuff gets fucking dry, right? Drier than the Sahara Desert in summer. So my object is to talk about it, but in a witty, entertaining way, right? And also, on that note, I'm going to start expanding the YouTube channel and talk about other things, not just the simulation theory. Because, when I started the YouTube channel, I was talking about all sorts of things, like, the fact that printer ink is a scam, how to become financially free, even though I'm not financially free, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I even did comedy sketches. The problem is, when you're first starting out on YouTube, all the gurus, the YouTube gurus, they say you can't just make YouTube videos about whatever you fancy because people get annoyed about that. They like niche channels. And so I kind of based it around the simulation theory because that's what you guys wanted. And I enjoy it. It's probably the one thing I'm most interested in. But now I'm going to start expanding out, because I am interested in other things as well, I'm not just a one-trick pony. So you'll be seeing some cool, interesting new videos in the future about other things. And I'm also gonna, try and do like more desky type videos like this. It just means I can make more videos quickly. Because if I come up with a cool idea, and it takes me a week to write the sodding thing, like a god level video with all the different multi-camera angles and stuff, before I've finished writing it, I'm bored of it. It's like I think I've got ADHD. I was looking into videos of this last week and it says like ADHD, you can't. Basically, they characterize ADHD as soon as you wake up in the morning, your mind, your internal monologue starts, right? And it goes, as soon as I open my eyes, I get this. It goes, I wonder how that they did that music video for. I wonder how Coldplay made that music video where they're singing the song backwards. Oh my god, I wonder how much money they earned for that, making that music video. I wonder how much it cost to make the music. Constant, endless thoughts, right? Soon as I open my eyes, bang! All day long, 24/7. Can't turn it off unless I meditate. Even then it doesn't really work, right? Or go to sleep. That works. But I know that some of you are the same, and that is characterised as ADHD or ADD. I'm not, I only read it on Google. I'm not like up on the whole thing. So it's interesting though, because I came up with a little theory about it, and it's this. What if, right, ADHD, only the real players in this video game have ADHD, and all the others who don't have ADHD, i.e. an internal monologue, are the NPCs? I did a bit of research and I googled it, and it said in the UK they reckon 1.5 million people out of the 70 million people that live in the UK have ADHD, they reckon. That means that's about 1 in 6. Every one person out of 6 is a real player, and the others, the rest, are NPCs. How mad is that as a theory? So it makes you think, doesn't it? 1 in 6 are real players and all the rest are NPCs. But also, if you are a real player, I reckon there's levels. So there's like me at the top here, absolutely enlightened, right? I know everything, I'm the best, right? And then at the bottom you've got a real player, they're just still plugged in to the system. They can accept the simulation theory, they just don't care about it. And they just want to live a very normal life, which is absolutely fine. Because, when you wake up and you get awakened to all this kind of stuff and you look into it, it's a fucking crazy journey. Gives you an existential crisis, which is why I did the video last week, because, some of you have existential crises about who and what we are, and we're thinking crazy shit, right? Because we're trying to uncover why we're really here. Because most people, well, throughout history, no one's ever bothered, except in religious times, but then it didn't get translated properly. So, we're left to just sit here and go, oh, well, I'll just do what everyone else does then and bloody get a job and do all the normal shit. Well, no, I don't want to do all that. I want to do cool shit. So I started researching into this CIA thing called the Gateway Experience. Some of you probably already know this because I think you've commented on it saying, Jack, look up the Gateway Experience. And I did. And that's how I found this. And Vice, that magazine, it's really terrible. What they do is, Vice magazine is like I think I've got a line for it here. Only reading Vice magazine would be like only eating McDonald's mozzarella sticks for every meal. It's just a nice little joke there, sort of talking about, Vice magazine being like the junk food of journalistic, artistic integrity in the world. Because what they do is they make their headlines as clickbaity as possible. Now, in terms of that, I appreciate their hustle, because I make my headlines for my titles for my YouTube videos as clickbaity as possible, and I'm still working on it, so they ain't that good yet. They ain't that good yet. Got plums in my mouth again, which you already know. And yeah, so Vice, they, usually I disregard anything from Vice magazine because they just write about absolute bollocks. But, like a broken clock, they are right twice a day. They wrote an article and it's entitled How to Escape the Confines of Time and Space According to the CIA. Ooh. Now what I'm going to do is, I actually wrote a video about this article and I never made it, right? Because I didn't think it was good enough. So I'm going to read through the best bits to get the idea across, right? And kind of tell you what it's all about and then talk about it, right? Okay, so the subheadline reads, the headline reads, How to Escape the Confines of Time and Space According to the CIA. And the subheadline reads, In the 1980s, the spy agency investigated the gateway experience technique to alter consciousness and ultimately escape space-time. Here is everything you need to know. I've read it and I'm only going to give you, that's you watching this, the interesting bits and summarise the rest, because there's a lot of fluff in this, and the guy that wrote it, who's called Thierry Champion, thinks they're a bit of an artistic wonder kid, when really they're just a faffy fucking millennial who do my nutting pretending to be a journalist. Idiot. Quote, The intrigue revolves around a classified 1983 CIA report on a technique called the gateway experience, which is a training system designed to focus brainwave output to alter consciousness and ultimately escape the restrictions of time and space. Shit your pants time. This is bloody interesting. The CIA was interested in all sorts of psychic research at the time, including the theory and applications of remote viewing, which is when someone views real events with only the power of their mind. I've heard about this. I think they do this sort of stuff in Stranger Things. If you've seen that on Netflix, they put kids in, cells and make them do weird shit, psychic phenomena. And science doesn't really like all that sort of stuff, but we know it goes on because the CIA's been doing it. And we you and me, we all know that the CIA's been into this shit for ages, ever since like World War II, when they got all the German Nazi scientists and made them give them all their secrets and shit, and go and meeting aliens and all that, right? Go into the Hollow Earth. So, we all know that happened. It's just how much of it is truth and how much is, made up by mentalists on the internet. That's what we have to decipher. Little joke for you that I wrote in the script. What does a CIA agent do when it's time for bed? He goes undercover. Something in my eye then. Another joke. I had an idea for a movie where a retired CIA agent searches for his daughter in Paris. Turns out the idea was taken. So I wrote that. Quote, In the 1950s, Robert Monroe, a radio broadcasting executive, begins producing evidence that specific sound patterns have identifiable effects on human capabilities. These include alertness, sleepiness, and expanded states of consciousness. I'm pretty sure there's another one called brown noise that makes you shit your pants as well. Don't know if you've heard about that. Useful. Quote, 1972, a classified report circulates in the US military and intelligence communities. It claims that the Soviet Union is pouring money into research involving ESP and psychokinesis for espionage purposes. Oh my god. Good old Soviet Union. Reminds me of an ex-girlfriend, actually. She was a communist and a real psycho. Don't know how I missed all those red flags. Right. I'm not going to read the whole lot of this because it's boring. More boring than going fishing. Actually, I say that. When I went fishing last week, I got hooked. That's enough of the jokes now. It's getting ridiculous. Anyway, right. This Robert Monroe geezer spends 20 years researching it and made a shitload of money out of writing 4 books and selling cassette tapes about how to hack the Matrix, essentially. I don't think it was called Hack the Matrix. I think it was called something else, right? I don't know what. God, you remember audio cassettes? They had an A side and a B side. So it's pretty logical then that the CD followed it up. A, B, C, D, right? You can have that one. Anyway, that's when the CIA gets involved, when they spot that the Soviet Union is pouring money into research involving ESP and psychokinesis for espionage purposes, because the Americans were like, they hated the commies back then. They are the commies now. No, they're not. I don't know what I'm talking about. Shut up, Jack. You know nothing about politics. No, so, yeah, obviously America doesn't like anyone being better than them, so they have to get in there and do them over. Quote, for the uninitiated, astral projection is mostly interchangeable with the psychophysical phenomena of out-of-body experiences and remote viewing. Another little joke for you. I had my first out-of-body experience today. I was beside myself. Quote, with the right guidance and technologies, astral projectors believe we can train our consciousness to move beyond the confines of the space-time dimension. This super ability frees our human minds to travel through the universe, exploring an endless array of normally imperceptible realities and dimensions. I'm just reminded of the Metaverse video that I made quite recently. You know, in Ready Player One, where you jump into the Metaverse after he puts the thing on, and you see time and space and the planets and things like that all around, and you take a deep dive through the planets, past the planets, and it kind of makes me think of that if this is a video game, of course you can come out of your body and explore all of the video game at once. It's kind of like exploring the Metaverse, like you would in a VR headset. It doesn't really make any sense, but it worked in my head, It's always the same. Anyway, quote, the pattern of the universe conspicuously mirrors the patterns of electrons around the nucleus of an atom. Well, that is interesting, isn't it? Because it's like pixels in a video game, which if you look closely, you can sometimes see. Atoms are very similar to this, as we've already explored. So there's a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Not from him directly, but there's a bit of video which is in one of my videos where he says, he's talking to these quantum physicist scientists, and he says to them, so the deeper you dig through these electrons and atoms, what do you find? And the guy says, we find code, computer code. Yeah, so computer code is written into every tiny little atom, and I think one day we will get so far and we'll discover the code that writes this video game. God, imagine if they just switched me off. Shut him up! Stop him talking about this! We've got a lot of money invested in this game. Look at them with their furrowed brows. You can tell I've been watching Bill Hicks. Okay, quote, this is where things get a little slippery. This is where things get a little slippery. Bloody hell, the whole thing's slippery. A slippery dish. Quote, this is where things get a little slippery. Hold on as best you can. The universe is in on the whole hologram thing too, Wayne writes. The super hologram is called a torus because it takes the shape of a fuck-off massive self-contained spiral. Ooh, a massive self-contained spiral. That sounds like a double helix. So that bit's rather interesting, right? Because if he's right, it kind of proves our theory that this life is just a video game. Because in a video game, the entire game and world is stored on a disc, which incidentally looks like a bit of a 2D version of a torus, doesn't it? A torus, if you don't know, is like a donut shape, right? And so there's patterns within patterns here. Now maybe it's just apophenia and pareidolia, connecting things that aren't really there, because my brain's very good at that. All brains are very good at that. Pareidolia and apophenia is where you can see a face in the curtains. It's the fear part of our brain spotting patterns in things that aren't necessarily there, because it comes from our days when we lived in the jungle as little cavemen with bear pants on and a little cheetah hat, where we would see a face like a tiger stalking us through the undergrowth, and we would see that and then be able to act on it, right? It's the fear part of the limbic system, I think, right? Or alternatively, these patterns keep repeating themselves throughout the universe. Now, to me, I think when I look in somebody's eyes, very closely, the shape, the colour and the pattern of a person's eye, specifically the coloured part, looks very, very, very similar to the universe. When you look at the universe through a telescope, when you look at space and it looks very similar, right? And that's a torus as well. So that's interesting. Or I could be talking bollocks. For instance, a hologram is a tiny pixel. A tiny pixel of a hologram is known to contain the entirety of the rest of the hologram. Here's some proof. Every part of a hologram contains the image of the whole object. For every viewing angle, you see the image in a different perspective as you would a real object. Each piece of a hologram contains a particular perspective of the image, but it includes the entire object. Ooh! That means that this world, if it's a video game, could be a holographic video game because it's projected and it's 2D. but it appears to us to be 3D. Does that make sense? Just like when you put a VR headset on, the images in that video game inside the VR headset are 2D. They're two-dimensional images, but they appear as 3D because it's just perspective. So yeah. Quote, galaxies north of our own are moving away from us faster than the galaxies to the south. Galaxies to the east and west of us are more distant. The energy that produced the matter that makes up the universe we presently enjoy will turn back in on itself eventually. Its trajectory is ovoid, don't know what that is, also known as the cosmic egg. As it curls back in on itself, it enters a black hole, goes through a densely packed nuclear energy nucleus, and then gets spat out the other side of a white hole and begins the process again. Blimey, that is deep, man. That's so fucking motherfucking deep. I've been smoking my doobies like Scooby-Doo and his doobie-doobie-doo. Kind of sounds like a reboot, doesn't it, all that? Like the energy curls back in on itself, enters a black hole and restarts. Sounds like the video game's just restarting itself. You complete it and it goes back round. Also, this Taurus thing sounds a bit like the symbol for infinity, doesn't it? Incidentally, the symbol for infinity is the same symbol that is now what Facebook, aka Meta is using the infinity symbol as their logo. And Meta is short for Metaverse. Facebook wants to start the next Metaverse. The next Metaverse will probably be the next simulation that we live inside. It's kind of fucking inevitable because Facebook is the only company that can afford to invest, something like $5 billion a year for the last 5 years into the next Metaverse. It's fucking inevitable. Imagine that. Mark Zuckerberg is the moderator of the next simulation. We're fucked. Mind you, I don't think anyone's going to jack into a Metaverse run by Mark fucking Zuckerberg, to be honest, because he's fucking android-looking twat. Quote, the takeaway is that human consciousness brought to a sufficiently altered, focused state could obtain information about the past, present and future, since they all live in the universal hologram simultaneously. Ooh, that's interesting. This could be where we get the idea of people remembering their past lives. Because people can do that. Mind you, I think a lot of these past life regressors are kind of charlatans because they always make you think everyone's bloody Napoleon or, some king or from Egypt or something. And it's like no one was ever a bloody Chinese peasant, or some poor sod from Mozambique in 1283, When you go into this state that the author described, it's akin to a kind of deep meditation, which is very similar to what people go into when they remember their past lives. Now, again, that could be nonsense, but I think it's a nice theory to look at. It reminds me of that old joke from Only Fools and Horses when Rodney says, if reincarnation does exist, knowing my luck, I'll come back as me. I love that joke. Quote, Wayne reasons that our all-reaching consciousness eventually participates in an all-knowing infinite continuum, i.e. we carry on. Long after we depart the space-time dimension and the hologram each of us perceives is snuffed out, our consciousness continues, reassuring in a way. This is what I wrote about that. This is basically what we've been talking about on this channel, that there is no such thing as death, just a continuation of the real you, what we call the real player, what I call the real player. That's my thing, so, anyone who uses that can fuck off. Trademarked. Just like the Buddhists talk about the reincarnation, as do other religions, that's why many Buddhist monks take themselves away from this world into a life of introspection and solitude and quiet to achieve what they call nirvana. Nirvana is where you aim to achieve a level of consciousness such is that it will stop the cycle of reincarnation. Because they know that this video game we call life, or at the earth level, at this time is one of the hardest settings. I say it's one of the hardest settings. It's not as hard as it would have been 50 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 500 years ago. At the moment, it's pretty fucking easy, isn't it? Even though, yes, we have different problems, it's different. The Buddhists, by going through nirvana, are basically wanting out of reincarnating back into this bloody hellhole, as they see it. By meditating and achieving a higher level of consciousness, they can stop reincarnating as players on Earth. But anyway, the author himself alludes to the following, quote, he cites multiple belief systems that have established identical findings. These include the Tibetan Shug, can't read that, the Hindu heaven of Indra, the Hebrew mystical philosophy, and the Christian concept of the Trinity, all the Matrix Trinity. Here he seems to be more interested in hammering home the theoretical underpinnings that make the Gateway experience possible rather than the practical possibilities promised by the Gateway tapes. I mean, I probably butchered this whole report, but I'll skip through the different chapters to find the interesting bits. It's bloody longer than a religious text. This quote is actually from page 24 of the 26-page report. I quote, I'll do it in an American accent so you can tell I'm doing it differently. So you can tell that this is a quote. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the... I'm not going to do that. It's fucking ridiculous. Quote. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the Absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it. That hologram is a mirror image of the Absolute in infinity. Still exists outside time and space, but is one step removed from the Absolute and is the actual agent of all creation, all reality, and the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from this self-consciousness, serves the... The next page, page 25, is actually missing from the report. It got redacted or pulled out because they don't want anyone to know anymore when it got released. And so they have all these juicy bits that were left out, that our reality is actually a video game using holographic, light to project this reality to us. And it says here, right, the consciousness of the Absolute, aka God, must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it, which means that we are God. God is in us. A piece of God is existing in every single one of us and experiencing the world out of our eyes. Eyes are the window to the soul. Soul, the Holy Trinity, is God up here, there. Then there's your soul. Then there's you in your meat body. All three are connected. The Holy Trinity. See what I mean? Because it says that here. The Absolute, that hologram is a mirror image of the Absolute in infinity. Still exists outside time and space, but is one step removed from the Absolute, aka the Absolute is God up here. One step removed is the soul, stepping into a player, you see. So yeah, my brain turned to noodles as well after looking into all of this. So let me get rid of that. Bloody interesting though, wasn't it? I must be honest, I didn't make that video because it confused me so much that I couldn't formulate it into a packaged video to make it interesting for you. There was too many jokes in it because I couldn't quite compute it. But I'm guessing that a lot of you guys are going to know more about that than me because I just repeat a lot of this stuff. You usually know more than I do, you know? So thanks for that. All right, what I'm going to do now is I want to go through some of your comments. And after that, I'm going to do the Matrix, my thoughts on the Matrix. So, comments from the last podcast. Jack, I feel we live this same character and life scenario again and again. 3 times most likely, as in most video games. Yeah, in video games you do get 3 lives usually. I feel like after each we get to go and be our own spirit guide for the next attempt. 3rd time's the charm, right? Then we play another character in another time and setting. I have a theatre background. We rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and we put on the show only one night. Definitely not. We have an opening night, the show runs, and we have a closing night, and we learn from any mistakes we made and put on a better show each night, hopefully with less nerves and more enjoyment. After all, it's called a play. There's a script, but anything can happen, and the show must go on. I like that. This comment's good, because life is a play. Life is a game, right? Life is a video game. And yeah, maybe we rehearse before we come in, and the player, the real player above us, is kind of part of the fun is getting to design the life before you go and play it. Just like in a lot of video games, or some, you can design your own levels, right? What if you write the script for how your life's going to go, right? And then you come in and live it. That's why it's mostly determined, because things kind of come into your life when you weren't expecting them to, and it's kind of cool and great and you can't really explain it. But there's other times when you feel like you do have a choice. You know, it's like in a video game like Red Dead or GTA, you have a choice. You can go left or you can go right. You know, somebody says something to you, do you choose option A or option B, right? But it still weaves into the narrative, you know, the whole as a whole. I carry on. When I was 11, I played Annie. Very nice. Good musical. Not many little girls get the opportunity. However, I'm not the only one to play that role. I was in The Wizard of Oz 4 times, once as a Munchkin, once Dorothy, once a member of the Nameless Ensemble residing in the Emerald City, and once as Glinda, the Good Witch, who reminds Dorothy that she had the power to return home within her all along. Each a different perspective of the same story. This game, this dream, this show we are co-creating, it is far from a one-time shot. There are infinite perspectives and choices to make as we evolve, and it is far too interesting to only play once through. What are your thoughts? Have you looked into any of Anthony Peake's work? I've never thought about it. I'm not going to pretend to know, because we can't know, so that'd be mental to pretend to know. I'm not enlightened. Well, kind of am, but not on this. Do we play... See, the thing is, if we're all God, and I say God, but you know what I mean, the infinite awareness, right? God, as Mark Twain said, got bored being on its own. He didn't have any mates, didn't have any friends, and he's sitting up there in the sky, in the clouds, bored out of its mind, right? It created a world, a game, where it could lose itself inside, and it could play every character, not knowing that they were the same person. So he's playing all the characters inside the video game. It is playing all the characters inside the video game, but these characters don't know that they are the same thing being played by the absolute, the real player, the main man, the main person, God, right? And so time only exists to us as a thing, a man-made thing, human-made thing, whatever. And so if time doesn't actually really exist, it only exists for us because we're born and then we die. So we have quite a strict view of time because our time here is finite. But if you're infinite, I reckon you could probably play this life that we have 1,000 times, just like you do a video game. And you'll play me 1,000 times. You'll play you 1,000 times. Then we'll swap. And every time we play it, we'll play it 1,000 different times. And we go on 1,000 different journeys. Because if time is infinite, like meta, infinite, right? Then surely you can be everyone. And every decision that you have, you can make it 1,000 times. An infinite amount of times. It's like the thing with the monkeys. An infinite amount of monkeys with an infinite amount of computers would eventually type the works of Shakespeare. And it's the same with this, right? With infinity, we would be everyone. And we can't get it into our heads because we can't really compute infinity. Because we're not infinite, we're finite. We're made of meat and we're going to eventually turn to dust and be eaten. Well, our bodies are, we're not, so we just carry on. So that's my thoughts on that. Thanks for the cool question. The next comment. Great episode, mate. I spent ages trying to type up a relevant question that contributed something. Alas, plums. Yes, plums. Edit. I do actually have a question. What do you enjoy about wearing lots of wristband thingies? I ain't got them on today. What do I enjoy about it? Okay. Firstly, I look sexy as fuck when I wear them. Secondly, feels quite cool. Alright? Is that a good enough answer? Good. Okay, next question. I'm not so good at explaining what's going on in my head. I know how you bloody feel, but I'll try my best. I was watching this video, it gave me a link, and it made me think. For us as humans to be able to literally become superhuman in a sense, does that mean we have the potential to become something greater than what we can actually conceive? I understand that it's drugs, but to unlock superhuman behaviours is very curious. A drug can literally make us shut off pain and do things we aren't supposed to do, i.e. lift weights that are beyond our limits without literally a thought about it. Our brain is more powerful than we understand. If we can just master our minds like the monks and Nikola Tesla have, could you imagine the limitless world that could be unlocked as a civilization? I believe this knowledge has been discovered ages ago. We've been taught to obey and consume, i.e. keep our minds preoccupied with surface level distractions. Think about it, the way they hide Nikola Tesla files. He mastered his own mind and came up with things that seemed like alien technology. I'm frustrated typing this because I'm probably making zero sense. You don't make zero sense, but I can see where you're coming from. It is really hard to verbalize what's going on in our heads, because when we have a thought, it's conceptual and it's made of images. But then we have to translate that into English and verbalize it through our, archaic system of speech. One day in the future, I've always thought this, I think we will be able to communicate telepathically. Maybe we'll be a lot more spiritual in the future, or have some technology where we'll be able to communicate telepathically to each other. And then, instead of talking and trying to understand, because it doesn't really work, does it? You can never really verbalize something like a thought and completely get it out, right? So I think when we can telepathically communicate, we'll be able to, because I have like thought bubbles, and it's all connected to lots of different things that I've read or researched, and it's all connected in some way. And what I'd like to be able to do is to download that as like a file and port it to your mind, and then you receive it and you go, oh, I see what you mean. See what I mean? Like that. And you would feel the thought and see the thought that I had. It's kind of like Dumbledore in Harry Potter when he goes and droops his memories into a bowl of magic potions, a bit like that. So what do I think about your comment? Yeah, I definitely think humans are capable of way more than we're told. Obviously, right? Monks can do some weird shit. Nikola Tesla definitely jacked in and hacked the Matrix in terms of being able to do things that normal plebs like us just can't do. I mean, I'm above the normal pleb because I'm a kind of genius, but so. And we do obey and consume a lot, but sometimes it's hard to really know what to do. It's very confusing, the propaganda. And I definitely think, knowledge about this stuff was discovered ages ago. There's civilizations come and they discover it and then they go. Perhaps we're not meant to discover it. And when we do, the civilization, bang, gone. Why? I'll tell you why. Because it's not in the interests of the people who run the simulation for us to discover that it's probably a simulation and develop techniques with our minds to be able to change our reality. Because when we get to that stage, we'll probably live in a kind of utopia. When we live in a kind of utopia, we will probably be creating another simulation to go inside because we're technologically advanced. So, forgot my train of thought. I can't remember. I'm just going to move on. Have you read Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton? If not, you should. It's far more flavourful and infinitely less boring than the My Big Toe trilogy. It adds so much to the simulation theory if you can combine the two in your mind. That book out. Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. That sounds good. I'm going to check that out because I did buy and read the My Big Toe trilogy by Dr. Joseph Campbell, I think his name is. I've seen a couple of his videos and it's just really boring. I've got ADHD. I can't sit and listen to something if it's boring. I'm sorry, Dr. Joseph. But if you could make yourself a bit more interesting, that would be great. Add some jokes and shit like me, and, be sexy like me. Hi, girls. So, yeah, I'm going to read that. But, I've only got so much time in a fudging day. I can't sit around reading books all the time. But, yeah, I will get around to it. Like all the other stuff I've got to do. It's fine. I'm enlightened. Comment. Love your channel, bro. Keep it up. Cheers, man. Plums. Next question. The light at the end of the tunnel is the lights in the delivery room. I know. I've heard that before. It's cool, right? What if the light at the end of the tunnel that people see when they think they're dying is you just waking up into the next life, like limbo, like Neo in the Matrix when he, when they're in the loading program. You just go to a loading program. Throughout history, we've always called limbo. And then they go, right, where are we going to load you into next? Do you want to jack back into the Matrix, or do you want to leave? See what I mean? It's cool, right? Next question. Jack, it is challenging to interpret Shakespeare in the Bible without knowing the code. It will appear bloody boring to you until you are ready. It actually seems that Shakespeare's works, as well as the King James version of the Bible, were both written by Sir Francis Bacon. Quite an interesting figure of the aristocratic and occult world who certainly would grasp the true nature of his reality. I think I commented back, cool idea, I'll certainly look into that. I've read them and performed in Shakespeare plays myself, but it's tricky and painstaking work, which it is. I stick by this. The Bible is boring. Shakespeare is boring. I don't want to... If you want to interpret it for me and just give me the cliff notes or the bullet points, I would be bloody happy with that. If if you send me a link to things someone's done about that, I'll be so grateful, because I don't want to do it. I'm not being funny. I've got shit to do, you know. I ain't sitting down with a Bible going, ooh, trying to find out the code from that. Next comment. You got it going on. Cheers, Ryan. Thanks, man. Next comment. Love your content. Cheers, man. Appreciate it. Next comment. My friend, you do have ADD, or at least a short attention span. Definitely do. But don't worry, I do too. I usually write notes in my phone if it's important and I don't want to forget. So this might explain why you're not brainwashed by subliminal messages or whatever else they might be using with the technology these days, because you bloody can't remember things. Lol. It's one of the theories I've come up with as an alternate, that maybe not that many people are NPCs after all. It's interesting, right? I think there's definitely something in the ADHD thing that, like, you know, I can't remember. Point proven. Right when you brought up the New Age stuff, I knew you were going to touch on that bullshit rules of attraction stuff, secret crap. I don't believe in that either. Visualizing does help, but you do have to put the work into it. Here's the thing, right? I don't necessarily think the law of attraction is bollocks, right? I just think it's hyped up as like the answer to everything, when it's not. The law of attraction works in a sense of like, but it's only sort of 1% of the power that you actually have to go and do stuff. You can't just sit on your ass and a fucking Ferrari comes to your door, you know? You have to go out and make your own luck. And when something comes along and goes, oh, my Ferrari, that was the law of attraction. Not necessarily, you know? That's just confirmation bias there, isn't it? So, yeah, that. Next part of the question. Question. Which Mandela effects flipped you upside down? For me, it was the fruit of a loom. Hillary Clinton to Hillary Clinton, Kit Kat, Monopoly Man, Laurel and Hardy. Here's another fine mess you've gotten me into, and Field of Dreams. I don't understand all of those Mandela effects, but I know some of them. Fruit of a loom, I've heard that one. I think, don't they make t-shirts? I think they do. Hillary Clinton to Hillary Clinton. Oh, Hillary Clinton with 2 L's to Hillary Clinton with 1 L in Hillary. Never heard of that one. Kit Kat, never heard of that one neither. Monopoly Man, I do know this one. Didn't he have a monocle? I remembered him with a monocle as well. And now he doesn't have a monocle. That's fucked up. Laurel and Hardy, which I'm just going to tell you now, Laurel and Hardy is my most favourite thing ever. I used to watch it as a kid all the bloody time. Even though it's old, it's brilliant. And I would love to do some comedy like Laurel and Hardy. I really, really would. And there's a quote here from Laurel and Hardy. Here's another fine mess you've gotten me into. I don't know what Mandela effect that is, but I'm going to have to look into that now because I love Laurel and Hardy. But yeah, like, here's the thing about the Mandela effect. What if, right, I came up with this theory. I think I may have seen it somewhere else. What if, when they change something in the simulation, correct something, right, maybe some mass murderer comes along, kills 1 billion people, right, releases some plague. They correct that because they want to put us on a positive timeline. So they correct that mass murderer killing loads of people. But then, through the law of unintended consequences, it creates an even worse simulation. So they correct that and go back to the original. That's why things like JFK, they let him be killed and stuff like that. I'm completely butchering the explanation, but you can kind of see where my train of thought's going there. And when they do change things in the simulation, it's something to do with quarks or quarks. I'm going to have to look into it. That when they do change something inside the simulation, it creates these Mandela effects where it kind of changes a little thing and people still have memories of the old simulation where, you know, the Monopoly Man had a monocle, you see. Anyway, next part. Some people's explanation is we're shifting through parallel universes. This simply can't be the answer, since we've seen plenty of residue on these effects existing at some points as we remember them. I think they're simply glitches. Plums. They are glitches, and yes, plums. I think we have to balance it. It's not simply all Mandela effect. I think the human memory is fallible. But here's the difference in the Mandela effect, right? The difference being is that people have a collective memory of things being the same way. People have a collective memory of the Monopoly Man with a monocle on his eye. People have a collective memory of the Bernstein Bears. People have a collective memory of Hillary Clinton versus Hillary Clinton. Whereas the fallibility inside one human being's memory about, you know, oh, I thought Kit Kats had a hyphen in it, right? As an example. you just go, oh no, you're just remembering it wrong. But with the Mandela effect, it's a collective thing. So that's why I think it's probably a glitch in the Matrix. Comment, love the Plums song. Plums up the bum, no harm done. Plums up the bum, no harm done. Ah, yes. Thumbs up for the Plums. Yes to the war room, I'm in. Yeah, I might start that one day when I get more views. So if you wouldn't mind sharing these videos, please, that would be most grateful. I'd be absolutely most grateful to you for doing that, okay? So please do that. Alright, that's the end of the comments, but I just want to go back and look at some of the comments on the most recent videos. Let's have a look. Hi Jack, Tom Campbell, My Big Toe, has a YouTube channel and he explains why we are living in a simulation of virtual reality. What's especially compelling about Tom is that even before he became a physicist, he had ongoing out-of-body experiences where he saw things that point to what you're talking about. I apologise if you're already aware of him. I am aware of him, but it's, like I said earlier, it's a bit boring. So if you could just summarise what what he talks about, that'd be bloody brilliant for me. Because I'm busy. Comment here about James Corden. You should have way more views, mate. This is top quality work. Cheers, mate. James Corden videos getting quite a lot of views lately, which is really good because I can't stand that motherfucker. Fat git. We're in a loop. Forget it being a tunnel. Man creates heaven. Man enters heaven, gets bored, creates another earth. Repeat cycle. Absolutely. That's why I think we're in a simulation, inside a simulation, inside a simulation, inside a simulation. Because we're creating the metaverse now, right? Or Zuckerberg is, right? We're going to soon be entering into the next simulation. Give it 30 years. We will mostly be living inside the next simulation, bit by bit. Work will go, then we'll be socializing inside the metaverse, then we'll be doing most things inside the metaverse. Porn will be one of the first things, seen as that always is, to do with sex. Probably be like metaverse prostitutes or something. Oh, wonder if you make money out of it. Be brilliant, wouldn't it? No, I wouldn't. I've lost my train of thought again now. But yeah, we're creating the next simulation. It's already nearly here, right? And so it stands to reason that this is simulation. So I don't understand why people don't believe that this is a simulation when you can literally see it, the next simulation being created in front of your very fudging eyes. Do you know what I mean? So it stands to reason that if this is a simulation, then we're already in another simulation, in a simulation, ad infinitum, until we get back to the real God or the infinite intelligence that created everything and is playing every single one of us. Interesting. The next thing I want to talk about was The Matrix Awakens, because they dropped a trailer with Unreal Engine 5, who create video games, and this trailer is bloody ridiculous. Why is it ridiculous? Well, firstly, because they computer generated Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, and it's kind of weird because you can kind of tell that they're computer generated. That doesn't quite fool your eyes completely, but you're still kind of like, is it computer generated or is it not? You still have to look really fudging closely. Anyway, it's a cool trailer. It's very meta. Again, reference to meta. And I'm just looking through it here because if you haven't seen the trailer, I'll link to it in the podcast below. You got Keanu Reeves walking around in the white loading screen with the two red chairs, and then he's talked to himself and he changes in front of you. And they look real, but you can kind of tell it's computer generated. Anyway, then it goes into the demo of the video game that I assume they're going to be releasing. I'm not too sure. With Unreal Engine, and they're in a car chase, and it's kind of some cool references to the marketing team got to have some action, and that's really cool. And then you see a bit of gameplay where you get to shoot at the agents. There's a cool car chase that is kind of resembles The Matrix Reloaded, the second film, which is my favourite one, where they're being chased and you got to shoot the tyres and kill the agents. Obviously, they never die. And then what it does is, so you play that demo, right? And it looks really cool. It looks like a really good game. And I don't even play video games. And it goes into the trailer. No, not a trailer. It's kind of like a presentation of the Unreal Engine game system where you can toggle it basically shows you the mass AI of all the cars moving over the motorway, and it's called world partitioning, automatic open world streaming, which is where it generates the world in front of you, and it looks so bloody real. It looks ridiculously real. The lighting and everything that they've generated is like next level because the lighting looks so good. It looks really realistic, even to the point where when you get really close to a car and you look at the reflection on the car, it works. And here's another thing I've just been reminded as I'm watching it. In computer games, they create a computer game using triangles. So there's no other shape, just triangles. Because with a triangle, you can have an X, a Y, and a Z, right? And then you stretch it, and that creates triangles throughout the video game. And they've used this for years, and you can see you can toggle it on and off, and it shows you all the triangles that make up the world in the Matrix. And it's crazy. They've even got a thing called Metahuman, which is what generates the AI humans in this world. Interesting that they call it Metahuman, which is the company that makes the humans as realistic as possible. Now, and the graphics are insane, right? It really does almost look real. And it made me think that if this is where we are now, where it looks great, it's not there yet, obviously, it's not indistinguishable from reality, but it's so bloody close. It is so close. 20 years, 30 years, and we will definitely have this being indistinguishable from reality inside of VR, and we will be able to play games like this, like The Matrix, like Grand Theft Auto, like Call of Duty, and it will look and it will feel real. We wear a haptic feedback suit, gloves, so we can feel the trigger when we pull it. We can feel the person's face when we punch it. We will feel a visceral gut feeling of dread when we fall off a building, which probably cause heart attacks, to be honest, because, it's not good for us. It's like when you see these videos of people inside VR and they walk off a ledge. It looks ridiculous because they've got a VR headset on, they're walking off a ledge, and it really fools their senses. And yeah, this trailer is just ridiculous. It just shows you how close we are to creating the next simulation. And it's bloody interesting that the Matrix did this because they were the ones who kicked off the whole simulation theory in reality, or made it popular anyway. Brought it into popular parlance, whatever the word is. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We're literally seeing the next simulation being built in front of us. And it's bit by bit, They'll build this and it looks great. And then Facebook's building the VR, and then, yeah, we're nearly there, which is a kind of weird, terrifying thought, to be honest with you. So that's that. Yeah, let me know your thoughts, because I base a lot of the videos that I make on the suggestions that you guys have. And if you can't think of a question, just comment plums up the bum in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. So thank you so much to everyone for watching this. I really do appreciate you. Thanks very much. See you later.